If you applied for a PPP loan for your business, you may have heard that there were changes in a lot of the rules that went into effect on June 5th, 2020. That's called the Flex Act. Hi, I'm lawyer Autumn Whit-Boyd, and I'm here today to tell you what you need to know. There are some major changes in a bunch of different rules about how PPP loan spending and forgiveness are going to work under this new law. Just a little background, the PPP loan is a federal program. It is administered by your local bank, and this is where small businesses are able to get up to 8 weeks of their payroll, rent, utilities, and interest on mortgages covered by the federal government. So it's a loan, but it is forgivable. So it's basically free money if you spend it the right way. But spending it the right way is not that easy. And there have been lots of very complicated rules. They keep changing. I think we've seen 4 or 5 different versions since this all started in April 2020. So I'm going to go over with you today a couple of key changes that happened. As I said, this law was signed into effect on June 5th. This is supposed to make it easier for all of us to spend our PPP money and get forgiven. That's the goal. I think most of us did not take these out hoping that we would have to pay it back. We want it to be a real forgiven loan that just kind of disappears. And this was just money that was kind of a cash infusion into our businesses. All right, so the first big change is that originally, if you don't get forgiveness, so let's say maybe you use the money the wrong way or you just can't meet all the requirements, and so you are not able to spend all of the money on these four categories of things: payroll, rent, utilities, and mortgage interest are the only things that you can spend that will be forgivable. So if you're not spending on those things, or if you don't follow all these other rules, part of your loan or all of your loan may not be forgivable. So if you do have to pay it back, the original time for payback was 2 years. That has been extended. Now, if you do have to pay back any portion of your loan, that's going to be 5 years. So that is good news. The next really big change, and this is one that I got my own PPP loan for the AWB firm, and this made me breathe a sigh of relief. We got our proceeds in late May, and so originally you had to spend it all during this 8-week period, and there was all this mechanics. What if your payroll dates didn't line up with that 8-week period, or what if your utility bill was not due until after? What if your rent, you'd already paid it before you got the proceeds? Now they have changed that to a 24-week period. So there's a lot of confusion around this. Actually, my own husband asked me, he said, I heard that instead of 8 weeks of money, now you're getting 24 weeks of money. No, that is not the case, unfortunately. Your loan amount is not going to change. It is still intended to cover 8 weeks of expenses of those 4 categories: the rent, utilities, payroll, and mortgage interest. But you now just have longer to spend the money. So again, if you maybe do payroll just once a month, that's what we do here at my firm. It allows you some flexibility on making sure that you can pay that payroll out within that 24-week period rather than trying to jam it into an 8-week period. Same thing for utilities, your mortgage interest, and any rent payments that are due. So that's a big change. You now have 24 weeks to spend the money and still be within the forgiveness guidelines. The other choice you have is if your loan is funded later, the kind of cutoff is December 31st, 2020. So you may not have that total of 24 weeks, but you definitely will get into December 31st, 2020. All right. The other big change is that initially the Department of Treasury came out with guidelines, and this was not in the original law, but they had guidelines that you had to spend at least 75% of your loan amount on payroll. And that is a high amount for a lot of businesses, because the amount that you're getting was based on your 2019 numbers. And so some of us, our payroll has fluctuated. Maybe we have less people on payroll, or maybe salaries have changed. And so for some people, getting to that 75% threshold was kind of difficult. So now that has been changed. That has been lowered to 60%. So you do have to spend 60% at least on payroll. You can definitely spend more. I have some colleagues and friends who are basically spending it all on payroll. That's fine, but you have to meet that 60% threshold to be eligible for forgiveness. So that is very important, but that's been made a little easier. The next thing that has changed is about rehiring employees. So, of course, when COVID hit in February, a lot of businesses had to make quick changes. They had to reduce their headcount for payroll to save expenses. So that is kind of taken into account in the Ppp Forgiveness rules, and that has now changed again. It's been made simpler, which is a good thing. So now, if you want your loan to be forgivable, you have until December 31st to rehire employees that were let go. So the previous deadline was June 30. You may have seen that. You have to bring your head count back up by June 30. That has been extended to December 31st, 2020. And there's more about that in the next point. So the other thing is, if your business can show that you basically are unable to hire because of economic conditions, you can still be forgiven. So you're not required now to bring your head count back up. You have to be able to show in good faith, and you have to document this. So you would have to show maybe that your business is still closed by an order of the state, or your sales are way, way, way down, and you just, you don't have work for anyone to do. I think would be a good faith reason not to rehire people. If you don't have anything for them to do, I think the government is going to understand that that's a good reason not to rehire people. But so you have to have a good faith reason. You have to document that you are unable to rehire the individuals that were employed, before COVID. And then that will kind of excuse you from having to rehire them to be able to still get your loan forgiven. All right, the other thing, and this kind of goes hand in hand with what I just talked about, is that if you are unable to return to the same level of business activity that you had before COVID hit, you are still eligible for full loan forgiveness. So again, if your business is still closed, if your business has dropped off a cliff, and so you could reopen, but you don't have business to do, you are now eligible for forgiveness. So that is a big change. All right. And then the last thing that I will just mention, originally payments. So if you do have to repay part of your loan, originally payments were going to be deferred for 6 months. That has been changed so that now your repayment is deferred basically until they figure out if you're going to be forgiven and how much of your loan is going to be forgiven. So that is now just much more clear. Who knows, once they start, processing forgiveness applications, how long that's going to take. And your bank that you obtained the loan through is the one that's going to process that application. So we've seen different banks have a lot of different timelines depending on how busy they are on how quickly they're processing things. So my guess is that's going to happen with forgiveness too. So if your bank has a huge backlog and they don't even get to your application for a while, you're not going to have to start repaying. You get deferment until they make that determination. Okay, I hope this was helpful. This is, again, a summary of the Flex Act that passed on June 5th, 2020. I am recording this on June 10th. My standard disclaimer, this is not legal advice. This is just information. If you have questions and if you are trying to figure this all out for your business, our law firm is having consultations. We're happy to get on the phone with you or do a Zoom call, help you work through this for your business, especially the forgiveness applications are going to start rolling out pretty soon. So if you need help with any of that, go to the link below, awbfirm.com/COVID-19, and you can find both more resources. We have several guides that are all free, and you can contact us to hire us if you need help with any of this. All right, stay tuned. There may be more changes soon, and we will keep you updated.